What's up, humans, and welcome to a new Psicoactivo. Happy Monday to everybody. I hope everybody's doing fantastically well. We have a live stream that I think we're going to start doing more regularly because I think there's good chemistry here, and it's good to just talk about whatever happened during the weekend. With today's, I don't know if he's a guest. I think he's a recurring guest now. I want to welcome Andy from That UFO Podcast. How you doing, Andy? Welcome back to the show, and let's fucking do it again.
Yeah, I am good. And as I said to my own audience, Pavel, we're hoping to do this kind of weekly or every couple of weeks. You're on the very successful Doomer Friday with those guys. I like to pop in now and again. Maybe there's room for a Mexish Monday. I don't know what to call this. But there's so much to talk about. And sometimes after a busy weekend, it's good to kind of shoot the shit. So hi to everyone on the Psicoactivo feed. Hi to everyone on the That UFO Podcast feed. And hi to all the bots. Make sure you like and subscribe.
All the bots, especially the sex bots. Just kidding.
Yeah, especially the sex bots, yeah.
Those are the ones that seem to get the more involved, which is kind of weird, especially on X. Okay, so on the weekend, first of all, my country lost yesterday against England, so I'm still a little bit hurt for that. I know you're not Mexican anymore, Andy, so...
No, I am now Norwegian. I am full-on Nordic, Erling Haaland. So yeah, for me, it's Nordic blood all the way until they get put out by England, and then I'm very much Argentinian again.
Yeah, Haaland is crazy, right? I didn't think he was going to do what he did yesterday. That was wild.
You know, we're going to talk about potentially beings walking amongst us, and Erling Haaland is up there with...
Messi.
He's a candidate, isn't he? For if we have NHI walking amongst us, Erling Haaland may be one of those.
Erling might be a Nordic, Messi might be a gray, who knows? He's just a short, so yeah. Okay, so yesterday, Matt Ford at the Good Trouble show, he had already announced that he was going to do an interview with Dr. Eric Davis. And just to give you a little I don't know if it's a scoop, but some information of Dr. Eric Davis during the Contact in the Desert. I got to see him in person, and Jack, who goes by Missile Man on X, and I approached him because Jack wanted to say hi. And when we approached him, Dr. Davis was like, I'm busy, go away. And we were like, okay, bye. And we didn't talk to him. Well, at least I didn't talk to him at all the entire trip there. That was all I got from Dr. Eric Davis. But yesterday he spoke about a number of different things that I want to go through. Perhaps the one that I think is because people are confused sometimes with folks like Dr. Davis or Dr. Hal Puthoff, who also did this, who go out on podcasts and in public and mention the species and that there's at least 4 of them that people report on. And we have this little clip from the Good Trouble show where Dr. Davis says the following about the species. Let's watch it.
Let me say these things on Podcaster at these big forums. Oh my God, he's revealing classified information. Why isn't he getting arrested and charged and going to prison and all that stuff? And it's because I've been trained on the process. I know what the criteria and the guardrails are. So I know what I can say. I can say to you guys that there are a minimum of 4 different alien species, and they are known from the public domain and in the classified world. The credibility of that ranges on the spectrum from no credibility to high credibility. The high credibility is the classified part. And in the high credibility, not on the far end of it, but there are credible witnesses who've been corroborated by multiple other witnesses or had other means of corroborating their account of an encounter with one of these 4 species. So there's some high credibility for witness accounts, and there's medium, low, and none. Sure. And there's a minimum of 4.
Sorry about Pachita in the background, but what do you think about this? Because you know, it's been a topic of conversation multiple times, and the last time he said this was on the disclosure event, Disclosure Foundation. They were called the UAP Disclosure Fund, I think. And he talked about this as well. But if it's not classified to talk about, why is it so difficult to get it out of them in the first place?
I always like to give a little bit of background just in case anyone's newer to this whole thing as well. And Eric Davis is one of those guys who is highly connected to the UFO topic through the Wilson Davis memo. He is the Davis to the Thomas Wilson from those notes that you may or may not heard of. Again, quick backstory. Eric Davis allegedly met Admiral Thomas Wilson in a shady underground car park like Smithers and Bart and Lisa and The Simpsons did. And they spoke in the back of a car about Admiral Wilson attempting years ago to get into the legacy programs, find out who the gatekeepers were, what was going on. Very high level, this, folks. Eric Davis then, from memory, went home, wrote the meeting out as best he could. Those eventually leaked on the internet and are now known as the Wilson Davis memo. Davis himself, really intelligent guy, physicist. I think a lot of folks would point to him being incredibly knowledgeable about a lot of different aspects of the UFO topic, the right people, the programs, all of that stuff. He doesn't do too many appearances. He is a hard guy. I've never been able to get in touch with Eric. Personally, I've tried on a few different platforms. So fair play to Matt getting the interview, and folks should go and check that out, definitely, because we're going to use some clips on this one, like Pavel says. So he's made a lot of comments in his time, and a couple of years ago, he was at I always forget what it was. Was it a public hearing that had himself, Luna, Elizondo? You know the event where Elizondo held
Yeah.
litigation?
Yeah, it was the Disclosure, the UAP Disclosure Fund, it was called, but it was like a public UAP panel.
Like a public hearing, yeah.
It wasn't a hearing. It was a panel.
No, but yeah, but it was like those guys in a panel, yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
So they were, and that's where he talked about the 4 types of species. So then he's elaborated here. But the elaboration here, saying the reliance of the information goes from weak to strong. What does that mean? Because that's the kind of stuff where, in one sense, it sounds like you're talking about 4 species. But then are you literally talking about, well, it's 4 species, but that ranges from hearsay from non-credible sources through to David Grush showing me on his phone a leaked video of a grey trying to escape a facility. You know, it's that sort of range, that A to Z that annoys a lot of folks in the UFO topic, because where are you then getting your information from? And I think this is going to be something we talk about throughout, especially when we get to the GERB stuff and what Davis said about UAP GERB, and where the conversation generally sits right now. When we spoke about this, Pavel, last week or the week before, around the kind of mess of the UFO conversation, where it is, who's talking, the different camps involved. And it's stuff like this where I was watching the Doomer Friday show, some of it on Friday with you guys, and you were having a bit of a debate back and forward. I can't remember who it was with. And I think it was around Clapper and James Clapper's involvement. And I really wanted to be involved to make the point to you that in this conversation, and this is me answering your question now, I think there are good people doing bad things, and I think there are bad people potentially doing good things. And then you've got everything else in the middle. So I don't even know at this point necessarily who the good guys are anymore. And are we, or should we necessarily be rooting against all of the bad guys in this? Because there are so many narratives and agendas across the board. It's just who you put your faith into in this topic right now. Davis is someone I would love to speak to. I'm sure you would as well. Obviously, he's already said no to you in person, so you can't ask him anymore. I've still to get that public knockback. But it's just so compartment. I remember speaking, I've mentioned this before, I won't say the name. I spoke to a really well-known figure in the UFO topic, and this isn't for super secrecy. I just don't want to cause shit for someone, basically, at the Sol Symposium in October. And they made the point to me, he made the point to me, I'm not giving much away saying that there are so many folks that all have their own agendas in this. The people you think all get on with each other don't necessarily get on with each other. There are people who you think maybe that do get on with each other. It's a bit more love-hate. And there's everything in between. It's such a messy conversation right now. And I don't see that getting better anytime soon. And that comment from Davis about the reliability of the information ranging from weak to strong for me isn't amazing for me, because it just throws doubt and dubiety into a lot of the conversation.
Yeah, and they're at each other's throats really behind the scenes, and it's been happening for a while. And what I don't get is why, if you are like constantly attacking each other in the background, why are you posing as if you were like a united front in public? That is something that I will never understand. If you have, if For me, and this is a very Mexican thing that we do, I think it's a very Scottish thing too. If you have a problem with someone who is either your friend or your collaborator, you just go directly to them and tell them to their face. You don't go and just start talking shit about the person with others and put them in, like, and if they can't take it, that's tough shit, really. But I think that being like that, being that upfront, gets you further than trying to do things like behind people's backs. And I think that in ufology, this happens all the time. And it's like a norm almost, that if you got a problem with someone, you just hear people talking shit about each other all the time. And in public, it's like, yeah, we're friends, we're all pro disclosure and all that shit. And it's like, wait, you were just like vomiting about this person like 2 days ago. What is wrong?
Yeah. And there's the public perception of that at lower levels, and then there's the way things are clearly happening behind the scenes too. I'm always really intrigued to know the direct relationship. I'm really intrigued to know where Burleson gets a lot of his information from, and Luna too, because I always assume or hope that it's Grush. Not that might necessarily be right, and down the line, Grush could end up being one of the bad guys, but I think a lot of folks put a lot of faith in Grush just now, and probably quite rightly so. But then you've got the Stephen Greer situation where he's hanging around there. Danny Sheehan seems to be involved with every single UFO group on the planet. So again, Danny is probably putting his 2 cents into a lot of this stuff. And I get the point where some folks get frustrated around the idea of this being like cyclical reporting. Pavel tells Andy, Andy tells Dan, Dan tells Xander, Xander tells Clint, Clint tells Pavel. And by the time it goes back to Pavel, the story's improved or slightly different or changed or tweaked, and Pavel gets to know new information. But the information came from Pavel. It was his speculation in the first place. And I wonder how often that happens, even at the very highest levels.
Yeah, I wonder too. And I wonder also if whatever species that Dr. Davis is talking about, the level of credibility is, for example, if Dave Grush told him that he saw pictures of aliens, of grays, or videos, he holds a different standard of that compared to a person at a symposium who is just a civilian who told him a story of an abduction experience with a gray. And I just wonder, does he take the credibility of David Grush and his credentials? Does he take that into account, and essentially of what is just hearsay? Because Grush just told him what he saw. He didn't show him anything really. And this other person is talking about their experience, and technically it is also hearsay because they didn't show anything, but he considers them much less credibility because they're not from the intelligence community or from the military or not a trained observer. I just wonder what type of measures he uses to give somebody credibility or not.
Even to take that, totally fair, to take that another step further or a different direction. Is there a case that, for example, we have the Greys, there is proof of that, there is evidence of that, we've got bodies, we've got bits, we've got multiple reportings, that's solid, that's concrete, different agencies are there across the board. Is it then the case, for example, that mantis beings There are no photographs, no videos, very few interactions, no official interaction, and it's largely testimony, hearsay. So that's on the lower end of the spectrum. So what they have proof for, what they physically have themselves is one thing. But on the other hand, they're hearing a lot about something else, and they've got reason to think that maybe there may be something to this. I honestly, I think the grey stuff is 100% legit. That is our classic ET, alien, extraterrestrial, NHI, whether it's robotic, sentient or not. I think we have those. We have bits of those. We have intact versions of those. And at times, the US government or others have had live versions of those in some form of captivity or safety, we'd like to think. I then think it goes down the chain that they've never captured a Nordic, but maybe they've met them. I think you then have the whole the mantis ones are the ones I kind of struggle with, to be honest. And I know when you say this kind of stuff, live chats, blow up and people get in touch and go, "Oh, the mantis beings are them." That's probably the ones I struggle to comprehend what that would look like and how that would come across, for no other reason than how incredible it sounds. But for me, that's perhaps the spectrum we're going across here. That the US government, private contractors and such have solid collected evidence of one thing, but perhaps they hear about other things. And I'd like to think it's at least that, because there is a case. Folks are going to look at what Davis has said here around credible information to not so credible. Why are we even dealing then with the not so credible information? I've not seen the full interview. I would love to have thought Matt maybe did or would like to have dug into that more. And that's something I would love to speak to Eric Davis about and really dig into as much as you could there.
Yeah, and there are accounts historically of these Nordics that are really strange. There's a recent one where Brent Friedman, Bryce Sable's co-host on Sound, Light, and Frequency, he talked about an encounter at Orcas Island or something like that it's called, where he says that he saw like a tall, white looking person that allegedly spoke to him telepathically because he didn't move his mouth when he was speaking. And he sort of commanded him to go away. And he listened. He did what he was told. And there are many different instances of that throughout the decades of these Nordics that apparently already live here. What do you think about that, though? That phenomenon? Because the Greys are more prevalent, I know, but there's also people that have spoken about the Nordics for decades now. And this famous story of this guy, Valiant Thor, is also very prominent. What's your take on that, on these Nordics?
I had a friend of mine yesterday sent me a WhatsApp of, it's like a grid of 9 alien races. And he's not a UFO guy in any way, shape, or form, but he knows what I do. And he was like, the top left was Nordics, and the top right was like Venetians, like from Venus, right? But then it had Greys and all that kind of stuff on it as well. And he was like, I'll give you the Grey stuff, but I'm not having the Nordics and the Venusians who look like us, basically. And so there's like a member of the public who's sharing this stuff with me going, I'm not having this. They just look like us. Why would they look like us? And you get that argument, don't you, that any other alien species could look like anything at all. So for something to look like us makes me think, are those the guys that have been here already? Where was I reading earlier today? I saw something. Oh, was it Jason Giorgiani? Is that the thing I shared with you, Pavel, in the chat?
Yes.
Yes. And I'm not too familiar with Giorgiani in any great depth or detail. From what I read, he is someone who is very eloquent and speaks in a lot of detail and confidence about things that some people say are just a little bit of bluster and drama and fallacy, but other folks buy into it. So I need to look into Giorgiani more myself, perhaps. But he made the point that Nordics are, is it humans from 10,000 years ago that are traveling 100 years into our future and coming back? It was something like that. I sent you. I'll look it up, right? But I
know exactly what you're talking about because I read his book Closer Encounters.
Okay.
And he discusses that the Nordics are actually humans who are like sort of like a breakaway civilization that has been here for a long time. They're not NHI. He claims that they're humans and that they have time traveling technology, and that they've been like sort of influencing humanity for many, many decades. I'm not sure I agree with Giorgiani's takes on pretty much everything, but he certainly speaks like very confidently about them as if they were completely true. And I just like it's just weird to me, you know.
Someone's made the comment there, everyone knew a Jason in school, like a Jason Giorgiani. That it reminds me of the time that one of my friends knew a compulsive liar, and they knew the guy was a compulsive liar. And they said that Michael Jackson had a tattoo of a smiley face on his finger, and that's why he wore a silver glove. And whenever he was at concerts, he would take the glove off and use the smiley face finger to point at people he wanted taken backstage. Now, that story is completely made up, but that's the kind of stuff like a compulsive liar would come out with. The Giorgiani stuff I'll look into, but do you buy into that? Because what it would then link into me is if, and I love a what if, I'm not saying this is true, if you do have these breakaway civilizations, something was here before us, something got far more advanced than we are even now, does that give basis to stories of Atlantis, for example, that you had these other advanced offshoots of us that, and I'm not saying you had super advanced underwater bases and things like that, but something that eventually became the Atlantis story, something happened to them, it broke down, it went away, and they had the technology to leave, to come back, to go somewhere else. I don't entirely know, but that for me is the one of the interesting ones with like the Nordic stuff. I can't see us having a race of beings who look exactly like us, pretty much traveling from anywhere else to come here. It would have to be something based pretty local.
Yeah, well, given how the leaps that he takes, that's Giorgiani, and he claims to have been working with Dr. Jacques Vallée, Dr. Diana Pasolka, and a lot of people, but you know, none of them acknowledge him at all. So I just want to know, why is he speaking with such conviction about these topics and intertwining every single thread on them, and not showing any evidence for it, really? That's what I would like to know about Giorgiani, though.
Yeah, but I don't think in this day and age, a lot of folks, and I think this is more of a, no offense to them, love the audience. And again, I always encourage folks these days to please leave a like and a comment because it helps people like us out. But there is a massive audience on YouTube, particularly, and some of the social media platforms for people who want to watch and listen to really sensational stuff, regardless of any basis in truth, regardless of any research done, regardless of context, and it gets likes and views and clicks, and it does really, really well. I'm guilty of that. I've said so many times the Andrew Basiago stuff. I used to watch him back in the day, long before I started the podcast, and I would watch 3 hours, 4 hours of Andrew Basiago standing on a platform talking about, as a kid, how his dad put him into a program along with a young Barack Obama. They would jump to Mars. They went back and viewed the crucifixion, all that kind of stuff. You know, they would time travel, and it's fascinating, and it's a really cool, wow, imagine that was true. But for me, I could separate that, imagine that was true, this clearly isn't. And there are other folks who believe that kind of stuff too. So I think everyone's got their kind of guilty pleasures in this, but there's an audience for it. And there's, same as like Ancient Aliens, where 90 to 95% of the stuff on Ancient Aliens is such a reach that, oh, well, it could have been the classic stuff of the pyramids. I get why people go with that. It looks like some of it, even to a layman like me, is far too intricate to have been made by humans. Even some of the stuff now would be difficult to build, if at all possible. Yet they were doing it thousands of years ago. But to then go into some of the stuff they do, and I was really honest when I was on Ancient Aliens, they gave me a list of things to talk about, and there was stuff where I was just like, I'm not really comfortable talking about X, Y, and Z because I don't know, and I'd rather not just sit there and make it up. But you do get folks who are happy to sit in a chair and talk about something they pretend they know something about. Just not in me to do that. So I think there's an audience for your Giorgianis, your Corey Goods. Again, Corey Goods the best example. A guy who literally made up all this stuff, sat in front of a camera on a deposition, said that it was all intellectual property, i.e. in his head, and that's what it was. It was a story. Now, he stopped short of saying it was lies and fake, but he did say it was a story of his intellectual property, and no one else could use it. Yet people will still believe Corey Good to be genuine and truthful. And
the whole 20 and back thing and the secret space program that he talks about, which is entirely different to, for example, the secret space program that Richard Dolan talks about, which is has nothing to do with that, But this comes into the whole counterintelligence and passage material kind of aspect of this, where you have the same topic, but it's talked about in different lights and in different ways by different people. Some of them, or the majority of them, are not talking about the real thing. They're just talking about whatever they want to insert into people's imagination. And that's what Corey Good did. And that's what, for example, people who keep talking about this Galactic Federation and the Ashtar Command and all that shit, that's what they're trying to do, in my opinion. Don't you think?
Yeah. And there are people who, I'm no psychologist or expert in that kind of area. There's a whole idea of finding your tribe I've talked about. I know that much. And people find their tribe, people find their go-tos, whether you're into crystal healing, whether you're into blue Palladian aliens, that are loving light beings, whether you're into some of the more weird stuff in this topic or other topics, people gravitate to what they're going to gravitate to. Same as when you're a kid, if you're an emo or a mosher or a goth or whatever you might have been, one of the cool kids. I was one of the geeks. But that's just kind of what people do. I don't want to get too far away from what we were talking about before with Davis, because there's loads to get into. I do have a top 10 things I pulled out of it as well, by the way. But if you want to keep on the four species thing, but
no. Can we welcome somebody who just crashed the live show, and we can talk about your top 10? We got from Others from Another Mother, Mr. Dan Cleary is in the house. Welcome, Dan.
What's up, guys? How are you?
Good evening, good morning, good afternoon. I don't know what it is there anymore.
How you doing, Dan?
I'm good. Condolences, Pavel. Sorry, buddy. I don't need to get into it, but I saw you guys chatting, and I'm loving the chat. I wanted to join.
Thank you. Welcome. Can you give us your list, Andy? What points from the conversation?
Yes. So I don't know, Dan, have you seen the Eric Davis interview yet, or
just some clips? Just the clips so far. Yeah,
cool. So I've got 10 points Eric Davis made in this interview, folks. And again, in the chats, make sure you're kind of leaving your comments and questions and stuff. So Eric Davis said he personally spent significant time at Skinwalker Ranch. So some of these are bigger, some of them are less so. He says he was NIDS astrophysics and aerospace physics director. He was on the ranch for 1 to 2 weeks a month for much of his time there. So Eric Davis, Skinwalker Ranch. Skinwalker Ranch is funny. It's one of those ones where this might just be me, but see, within like the UFO community, seems to have over the years got less and less love in terms of the show and what it's doing and the investigation. But publicly, it still seems really popular. And see online, Skinwalker Ranch is a pull. If you put Skinwalker Ranch in your YouTube video, your audio title, your social media clip, there is a pull there for Skinwalker Ranch. So I don't know if you guys find that or not.
Dan?
I know that it's a huge thing. I've never been a big fan of it myself. But yeah, you're absolutely right. It's a massive thing that seems to have a huge audience that does get some clicks.
I've changed my position on a lot of what goes on there or allegedly goes on there, because initially when I started this, as anybody who's been more in tune with the quote unquote real world, whenever I heard stories about ghosts and apparitions and all of this stuff, I never ever imagined or thought that it might be correlated to the UFO topic or to like what I know now as high strangeness.
Mm-hmm.
But since then, I started to appreciate that a little bit more because, for example, and just to give you one example, people who see these orbs, they report to see these orbs whenever they're going through a really difficult moment in their life. Like, for example, when they lost a loved one, or when they, well, Chris Bledsoe, in his case, he went completely broke, and then he had his experience with that. So I started just like trying to understand it from that different type of light. And now it's a little different for me, because now I don't consider everything that goes on there not credible. I'm just like ambivalent. I don't know whether it might be credible or not. I know that the whole crew does have to like present a product that is merchandisable and apt for every viewer and all that. They have to sell a product, right? But there's also this other aspect that happens in the books and Skinwalkers at the Pentagon and the hunt for the Skinwalker, that after reading those, it's like it feels a lot like what my cultures from my country have gone through in the shamanistic world and all of this stuff. It feels a lot like that. So now I'm not so sure if I think, oh, it's probably bullshit. Now I don't know for sure. I don't know if how much of the super spectrum people see when they're there, you know?
Yeah. I think it's that you have to separate, for me, the investigation and the TV show now. TV show needs to film a TV show. They don't want an hour of digging on camera. They want interesting, oh my God, we've hit a new rock. Oh my God, what's that noise? You know, and it's nothing. That's just what happens. Otherwise, it's really boring of, are you still digging? Yep. You hit anything yet? Nah. Cool. Keep going. That doesn't work on camera. So I get there's a delicate balance, but I think there are so many shows that came before it, like, what is it? The Curse of Oak Island, which is the treasure hunting one, where they've been hunting for this treasure and it's season after season after season. And there's always a joke online that they're always going to find it next season. And you can see where that pulls into the UFO topic. You know, it's that chasing the magic dragon. You're always going to get it next time. It reminds me as a kid.
Same with the Bigfoot show.
I remember buying 15 Milky Ways once as a kid when they were 10 pence each, when I had £1.50, trying to win a copy of Sonic the Hedgehog 2 on Sega Mega Drive. And I didn't win, but every time I opened one of those wrappers, I thought the next one was I was going to win. I did not win a copy of Sonic the Hedgehog 2. But, you know, I had 15 Milky Ways and I got sick at the end of it. And that's that's a consequence of my actions.
Non-diary, man, next time.
Yeah. Fun fact, I was fat as a child. Can you believe that? Trying to win competitions like that. So, yeah, I think there's an element of that with it, where people see all these shows and episodes and a need for drama, where people think they could do more. But I think the investigation that was, the real investigation that is still going on now, and what you see in TV are three different things at this point. So, yeah. But I'd love to see Skinwalker turn something up. But I tell you something, if Skinwalker Ranch turns something genuinely paradigm shifting up, it will not be watch next episode. It will not be follow us next season. It will be live tonight. We have a special report from Skinwalker Ranch on the news at prime time, and they will cut to it. That's what will happen. And I've said this before, there will be no documentary that will be aired on TV that you have to wait months for. Anything that is genuinely a huge discovery that is going to change anything will be live on the news.
You've spoken to some people who work there, right?
Almost all of them, yeah.
What's your feeling when you talk to them? Do you think that they believe they're doing something real, or does it feel more like, for example, this guy from the Ancient Aliens crew, the guy?
No, I know who you mean. Genuinely, I get the feeling Brandon's a showman, right? Brandon Fugel's a showman, and he speaks quite often in sound bites, which for me as an interviewer is something maybe I've had to get better at over the time, where he's advertising the show. But when you speak to Brandon before and after recording, he's such a down-to-earth, geeky guy with all this cool stuff that he's bought from Keanu Reeves. Dan, you'll know Keanu. Bruce Willis, Arnold Schwarzenegger. He's got like the Terminator 2 original stuff from the sets, right? He's just a geek with a lot of money and a very successful businessman, but he is geeky. But the guys who work there, I've always had the feeling, genuinely, that they are torn between working on a real scientific investigation, but they also have this television crew there the whole time. I've spoken to multiple of them around. They're doing a genuine experiment, and the crew goes, Dan, you're holding they have to have like a certain instrument inside of a tin can to stop certain interference happening, which is happening on the ranch, but that doesn't work on camera, you holding this device inside of a tin can. So do the experiment, but what we're going to do, we're going to film you again, Dan. We want you to take the device out, and we want you to use it there. Yeah, but that's not going to show you the result. Yeah, that's fine, but the shot inside the can doesn't work. I know people that were on Come Dine With Me. Do you get that show in the US, Come Dine With Me?
No, I don't think so.
Four people basically prepare dinner for each other, and each night they go to the person's house and they have a party. They all cook, and it's filmed over a day, and then it's who wins at the end of it wins money. It's really popular here in the UK, right? I know someone who was on it. They spend about 16 hours filming. So Dan's making a pasta dish for the dinner party, but you're making it at 11 o'clock in the morning for a 7 p.m. party, because the camera crew have to film you preparing it over and over and over. You'll put it in the oven. They'll say, wait a minute, can you take that back out the oven? We're going to change the lighting. We're then going to film it from a different angle. Can you put it back in the oven a little bit slower for us? So is your meal going to be the same at the end of the day? No, but they have to have it look a certain way. And that for me is one of the issues with Skinwalker Ranch as an entertainment product. But there is a genuine scientific investigation going on at the same time.
Okay. Yeah, I've never been like too keen on watching that. I probably, if there is something real happening there, there's probably some kind of electromagnetic disturbance going on that makes all of that happen, because I did go to Ensenada to interview a lot of fishermen who report objects coming out of the water. And one of the things that they all discuss is that there is an electromagnetic anomaly specifically on that area where they see all those lights. So I wonder if, and this, I've talked about this before, here in Mexico, we have the zone of silence, for example, which is a highly electromagnetically anomalous place in Mexico. And there's even plants that grow there that don't grow anywhere else because of the environment. And I just wonder if Skinwalker Ranch is one of those places as well, but it's been exploited for the TV show. But there is something real there,
Or perhaps similar to the Bledsoe story. I know I've shared this with you guys and other folks before. I get the feeling Chris Bledsoe may have had a genuine experience some time ago. Is that still happening now? Is probably up for a very fair debate. Skinwalker Ranch might be similar, where the phenomenon happens in cycles and then stops. But is that much use if you're filming a TV show year after year after year? Well, what if the phenomenon stops for 5 years? Yeah, we'll film. No, you've got a contract.
I think there's a difference between what Chris Bledsoe is doing and those guys, because funny you mention it. I've been talking to Chris for a little bit over the last couple of days because I've been kind of trying to just ask him why does he anthropomorphize what his experience is, because he's keen and dead set on saying that this is this has to do with God and with his beliefs. And I'm like, are you sure you're not anthropomorphizing this? Because it sort of feels like that, because I've had experiences that I cannot explain. And there are some people who are very religious who have told me directly, oh, that's your guardian angel. And I'm like, how do you know that? Like, you say it so confidently like that. And, I was an atheist for a long time. Now I just don't know. I'm more inclined to believe that there's something similar to the Force in Star Wars or something like that, but nothing to do with a bearded man who punishes you because you're naughty like that. And I'm not talking about Santa Claus. But talking to Chris, it seems like he's just dead set on that idea. And he keeps saying like stuff like, no PhD is going to ever explain this to you, or, stuff like that. And I'm like, he's like, what people call consciousness now is just God in the old days. And I'm like, okay, so don't you think that if it was called God back in the day, terms tend to evolve over time, and now it's known as consciousness, not necessarily God? And he's like, no, it is God. I'm like, okay.
I have a very
we're never gonna agree. We're never gonna agree on this.
I have a strong feeling that he has people around him telling him that that's what that is, and feeding into his thought of it and confirming his beliefs to him, or helping form those beliefs. Just
you mean close family?
Feels that way.
Not necessarily.
No, I would think it's more people like that see that he has contact with the phenomenon, and they just want to mold him to whatever they have planned to do, right? Like whatever their agenda is. And Chris is not unique. There's a lot of people that experience these things around the world.
There's the issue. Chris is not unique. That's not how he and others around him portray his situation. Yep. They do portray it as unique. That's the issue I have when anyone, whether it's Greer, Bledsoe, or anybody in the topic, whether people think I like them or not, when people speak in absolutes, that really frustrates me. Because if Chris Bledsoe right now was coming out and saying it could be this, it could be God, it could be a religious figure, this could be spiritual, those orbs could be this, but he doesn't. Everything is very much like your point there. PhDs will never explain this. No, because everything's up here. What was it the Mormon religion where my Mormon knowledge is from South Park and the Book of Mormon.
That's plenty.
Yeah. That's enough, dude.
But they seem to get it right. So this guy finds these tablets and only he can decipher them and only he knows what's on them. And when he gets called out, Joseph Smith, dum. Yep, cool, classic. So he only he knows, and that's the way that stuff begins to sound for me. You know, it's when no one can do it except me, when only I know, when I watched the Greer announcement last week, the special global announcement, hell of a title. When you've got someone sitting there talking about the aliens are saying this, the aliens are saying, what's to stop me starting to do that? Over 6 months, if I start just saying I'm having downloads and visions and a being's talking to me, and I come up with a really cool backstory and name, there's people who would believe that and start to listen to that and form. And I can say I've spoken to these folks over the years and I'm now in connection with this. I saw, and it just gets so frustrating. The absolute stuff just really, really turns me off people in this topic.
But what if it's true? What if it is true?
Just that story?
Or what if
this is about God, you ask?
No. Like what if there are people who are chosen? Like I don't think this is true, but what if there are people that like are truly special, where they do get specific downloads or specific contact events, and there is like an open line of communication with some form of intelligence? Should those people not talk about it? Because I kind of feel like maybe don't talk about it because it's going to hurt things.
Really good point. I would say they would be a lot more humble about talking about it, because when they're not humble about it and they don't acknowledge people's skepticism and they don't ever say, I don't know, when they claim to know everything or dismiss people for questioning anything, there's no compassion, there's no empathy. Then for me, that just comes across as them being protective of a product.
Yep, totally.
And I have heard Chris at Contact actually saying that if you don't believe, you might as well just not be here for the experience. And I'm like,
because it's your fault, because you don't believe. And Bledsoe does say this: if you don't see, then it's on you. It's because you're not open-minded enough. So it's almost like shaming you into it. So Dan, if you're there having a collective experience at Contact in the Desert or some other event, imagine you paid $500 to be there, right? Because the aliens require that kind of fee for you to see them. So you're out there with like 50 people on the cat. You've had a lovely evening. You've roasted some s'mores, whatever it is you Americans do and stuff like that, right?
That's what we do.
Yeah, you're looking up at the beautiful night sky, and people start claiming they're seeing something. But what if you don't? So according to like the Bledsoes of the world, that's because you're not enough of a believer. So do you then trick yourself into seeing something? Do you have to then start convincing yourself you're seeing something that's maybe not there? Because that's the way some of this comes across to me. What was really heartening to hear, I don't think it was the contact you guys were at. I'm pretty sure it was last year's, because it wasn't so recent. But there was an event that I'm sure, I might be getting this wrong. A few people, podcasters like Patrick from Vetted,
Yep.
and
The
maybe
laser
Kelly
pointer.
Chase, I'm not sure. They were at a Bledsoe thing, and when people were shouting orb, 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 they were like, no, it's like a satellite, and people even had it on an app, I believe. So
Or a
there were some
plane.
folks there who called it out, but
Yeah.
other folks there were like, no, you're just not a believer. That becomes cult-like behavior. That's not right. That's not right for me at all.
I had this. I mean, I haven't really talked about it yet, but I had that experience at this contact. I went to a private Skywatch. Some of people were there as well, Andy, but a private Skywatch from the Psionic Asset Company, and I was there for 4 hours, and every couple seconds it's like there's an orb to the north, and I'm like, okay, that is absolutely a satellite, and people are like, thank you, oh my god, thank you, and me and a couple people around me were like, clearly a couple were airplanes. Like, there's no doubt in my mind they were airplanes, and I hear whispers around me being like, that's a fucking airplane. What's going on here? What is this? And I will say there were probably 3 or 4 times where something was in the sky that was strange. I mean, it was like orbish, very orby, and I don't know how I feel about orbs. I'm with you, Andy, where orbs is like it bothered me for years, the idea of orbs, but I think they're a thing. I saw a few that was like, okay, that's interesting. Nothing mind-blowing, but so many of the things that they were shouting out were definitely satellites and airplanes. With not discerning anything. Just everything was an orb.
I can't get on board with all the thank you stuff either. That
Nope.
just
Same.
I at Sol, me and my friend Laurie, who may be listening, who was at Sol, there was a Skywatch on the pier, because it was a beautiful setting. Lake Maggiore was stunning, and they went down on a really clear night. Little bit of cloud cover here and there, but I think that's good for depth perception and stuff like that, because if one of these orbs could come down and under the cloud, that would be great, but they tend not to. So they were having like a private on the pier, all these folks sitting down there. I went and grabbed a pizza, sat up in the balcony of the bar. I don't really drink, folks, so it was like I was on cans of Coke and a pizza, stunning Italian pizza, and myself and Laurie watched, and I thought, I'm going to sit here and just enjoy the view. We sat for about an hour and a half and nothing happened. So is that because myself and Laurie weren't enough of a believer and we put them off? I don't know. But it just seems, and there's the other thing, whenever you're at a Bledsoe or a Greer event, and I'm sorry to pick on those, and if people are in the chats or whatever, or listening to this who are big fans of those, this is just how I feel, my opinion. You don't have to, go along with it. If you're at one of those events, you shouldn't always see something. Again, it's like if I pay to go and see the Northern Lights, there is not a guarantee you will see the Northern Lights for any number of reasons.
Or
you
a whale
may not
watch.
see them.
When you go on a whale watch.
Or whale watch,
Yep.
But it's like, it just happens to be anytime you go to one of these things and you've paid enough money, you will 100% see these things. So if that's the case, can we just get News Nation, who seem hella up for anything like this, bring them along to a private space and do it live with Ross and producer Megan? There you go. Show us all the orbs. But
it's what's frustrated me about Skywatcher and the Psionic Acid crew and all that, because Batista showed that video of the alleged interdimensional being and all that stuff. We've talked about this. It frustrates me that they keep talking about it in the background, and they release these like nuggets of rumors that something happened. There was a landing. There was this guy from NASA who was apparently at the landing. But all we get is hearsay. We get jack shit when it comes to evidence. And if we try to ask them for it, they go like, oh, Skywatcher was red teamed. Oh, we had to sign NDAs and we can't talk about it. And it's like, do you not understand where the frustration comes from when you're behaving like this constantly? It's just really, really frustrating. It's like, I'm done. There comes a time when I'm like, I'm done. And if I start seeing like shady shit happening, I've already started to call it out a little bit, but
There's some shady fucking shit.
I'll go much deeper eventually, and I will, because I'm still gathering a little bit of data. But yeah, it gets culty, Andy. Very culty.
Oh, you said culty. I thought you were using another Scottish word there for a second.
No.
So the again, I'm not saying orbs are not like you, Dan. Orbs are a genuine phenomenon. However, I think there are people who take advantage of it, like anything in the UFO topic, and monetize it themselves, or it becomes this absolute where they're almost in control of this phenomenon, and I just don't think that's how it would work. But again, the idea, imagine we all had that enlightening moment and the entire world all done CE5 at the same time, right? You know what that thing, if everyone flushed their toilets at the same time, there'd be a tsunami somewhere, which I don't believe is true. I think Mythbusters talked about that once. But the idea, if we all done CE5, are we all going to see these things above us? I don't think that's the case. Can I give a couple of other Eric Davis? Because that's only the first one still, so I'll combine a few here. Number two, Davis said he personally witnessed a large anomalous craft at Skinwalker Ranch, a large amber-lit object in September 96, then another small object in November 96 with Colm Kelleher. He says it wasn't a small orb, but something much larger, silent, opaque, and it flew low over the ranch. And he does say that ranch orbs were usually basketball to human head sized, close to the ground, and roughly human height. By contrast, the amber craft he saw was larger, higher, and behaved differently. So there's orbs, and we'll have to always use the word allegedly here, just to be fair. Orbs on Skinwalker Ranch, human height, 5 to 6 to 7 feet off the ground. Can we not get some of these other folks? But I'm not going to keep bashing Bledsoe and co. Could they not bring them closer down? Because surely that would help. And again, at that point, sign me up to your app, sign me up to your camp. You know, I'll go all in. Much like when Tom Cruise got to the level of Scientology years ago where he could levitate off the ground. Show me Tom Cruise levitating and I will sign up to Scientology.
Yeah. Great points.
Dan?
It's great points. When you talk about the psionic people, like you said, if you can do this, call them in close. Like call them in to within 15 feet of your camera. When I was at that Skywatch, the CEO of the company, before we started the whole event, he kind of laid out his mission statement, and he said, now we have the ability to call them in close. In 6 months, we want to get them closer. In 12 months, we want to get them to land. And in 18 months, we want a handshake with a being. That is our mission statement. And I'm wondering, like, well, what makes you make these 6 month, like, what advances in 6 months? How do you know that within 6 months you'll get one to land, and then 6 months later you'll get a handshake? What is that based? And again, those are very, very bold claims, and we've heard that from Skywatcher before, where they said within a year we will have one landed, and that never happened. So it's very suspect language to me.
Yep. And it feels like a counter-intel operation as well. I just want to put that out there. Because, they come from the military. They come from the Green Berets. They come directly from Skywatcher. And Skywatcher was red-teamed. I don't know if they still want to keep inserting these nuggets of information in the community. That's one of the ways that I would do it. Just create a new venture and try to keep doing the same thing, and go on Gaia TV and talk about Andromeda and, shit like that.
By the way, I want it to work. It could work. And if it works, I'm stoked if it happens. I don't think any of us have seen anything super compelling yet at all. I mean, I don't know about you guys. I haven't seen anything super compelling yet.
Not yet.
No.
No.
Eric said the hitchhiker effect is real, but frames it as poltergeist type activity, saying the phenomenon followed him home to Las Vegas and affected his family. Says it also affected others connected to the ranch, including security personnel, folks from the intel community, and eventually Bigelow. I think a lot of that's pretty well covered. He says cattle mutilations were likely man-made and not alien. His view is that cattle mutilations were connected to a covert government or contractor biological testing and monitoring operation. He claims the target issues such as eyes, lips, udders, rectum, and genitals match areas where disease markers accumulate. So my only issue with that, and if I've sounded like I'm on the side of the debunkers previously, let me get back on the side of the UFO folks here. Why would the government or private contractors be doing this next to a TV show area, a really well-known UFO hotspot? Why would you not go and do it in a random field somewhere? Why would you not have, I'm sorry for the PETA folks and the vegans, but why would you not just have your own cattle ranch somewhere
Correct.
and test this yourself, where you don't need weird flying vehicles to help you do it? That doesn't make sense to me that it's man-made in that sense at all.
And that way you're not fucking with civilian livestock, civilian cattle,
Yeah. Makes no sense. It would be such an easy controlled experiment to do and have set up in any kind of way to do what you need and get what you need, that you wouldn't have to jump onto someone's farm in the middle of Utah where you're going to potentially be exposed. That makes zero sense to me.
You know what I think often, though? Because how many dumps do you think are close to that area? And
deep underground military bases for folks who aren't familiar with the acronyms.
And how many experiments, if there is a dump there, how many experiments do you think go on there that could cause some of these effects and could cause hallucinations in people and all that? I've always thought about this when it comes to the Skinwalker Ranch area and much of the Utah area, because it's not just Skinwalker Ranch. Jacques Vallée is on record saying that pretty much every single part of the Utah area has paranormal activity going on. And a lot of those deep underground facilities are there. So there's also a possibility that there is some kind of experimentation going on that the government doesn't want you to find out about. And they're okay with the Skinwalker Ranch people having their little show there just so it can cover for whatever they're doing there. That's something that I've always thought about.
But they can't have cattle underground of their own.
That's true. I don't know.
Have you seen Severance?
No.
Great
yet.
TV series. I got into it really late, but I beg you, go and watch Severance and give it a couple of episodes and you will be absolutely hooked. Okay? So I won't go into too much more, but the idea that you couldn't keep a whole bunch of animals kept tucked away secret underground is relevant to that comment. So I don't see why that would be. The only way it would be man-made for me would be pranksters and hoaxers like crop circles, but they're not, unless it's a bunch of surgeons who like to go and cut up cattle and drain their blood and do it really cleanly for kicks during the night. That makes no sense to me.
Has any surgeon ever tried to mimic the results of a cattle mutilation?
It's impossible.
Without spilling blood.
I don't think they'd want to do that publicly, would they?
There is no because I'm telling you, because I've asked my dad about this. He's a surgeon, so he knows about any type of instrumentation that would be capable of doing those types of incisions and draining the blood completely out of animals. And this has been happening at least since the 70s, I think. And when I asked my dad, he was like, there's nothing that we have in medicine, no instrumentation right now that is capable of doing that level of surgical incision, that precise. And there is nothing that can drain the blood of something like that, as if it just sucked it out. And I was, when I started looking into this a little bit more and started Psicoactivo, my dad was one of the first people that I started asking this about. He's like, that's impossible. I don't know how it's done.
Could you drain the blood with an IV first so the animal dies of blood loss, and then you do the cutting stuff off while there's no blood loss? Is that possible?
The thing is that the process of draining someone's blood takes multiple hours, and some of the reports report the cow going missing and then just appears a couple of hours later completely drained out of blood. So how did that happen?
Yeah, fair.
I think at this point we've been going an hour. If everyone in the feed likes and comments on the videos and the streams to help out, we will make sure Pavel's dad does that experiment live on the channel. No, we won't. We won't. No animals will be harmed in the making of these shows.
No.
We'll pick a really bad cow.
Yeah, or a bad person. There's plenty of those.
A killer cow.
One that
A
really
cat
deserves
cow.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Eric also said, Eric Davis still here, folks. Eric says Roswell should really be called Corona. He said the crash site was not in Roswell itself, but on the Foster Ranch near Corona, New Mexico, 106 miles from Roswell. He also pushed back on the word biologics, saying the cleaner term would be dead NHI or alien bodies. I'm less fuss on the actual map of the Roswell crash because all that stuff's relatively. I was covering a couple of days ago some of the information around Roswell in the news update that I done yesterday, and the idea that the actual Roswell crash didn't happen July 8th. It may have happened early June. It goes back to even earlier June because that's when the Project Mogul stuff launched. So the cover-up kind of stems from there. You've then got Mac Basil finding debris, apparently not reporting it till late in the month. Then it was July, blah, 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 blah. I'm less fussed on that at the minute, but more on Davis's comments around pushing back on biologics. Obviously, that's then aimed at Grush. Why would Grush say biologics instead of just saying dead NHI, alien bodies, or bits of aliens? I'm curious to know your thoughts on that.
Well, on Rogan, he made a comment about sometimes they found stuff where they opened up something or got inside of a craft and they saw remains but had no idea what they were even looking at. So I don't know if that means that the form it took, like the form it lives in, is so bizarre he couldn't tell, or if it was so turned to mush or had decomposed or something where they couldn't even tell what the form initially was. But he was very specific about, we don't even know what we're looking at here.
Have you guys seen Project Hail Mary?
Yeah.
I wonder if like maybe some of the things that were found were similar to that alien right there, you know, like it's something so amorphous that you can't really find a shape or give it a specific species or something like this. Like it's just too weird. So it's just biologics, you know.
I guess even to Davis's point, that would still be a body, an NHI being or body, right?
That's true.
And you can be pedantic, but at the end of the day, I think for 99.9% of folks, we know what UFOs mean, and folks do the old, UFOs are just flying objects that haven't been identified yet. We are talking about alien spaceships. But they may not be alien. They might be Nordics from 10,000 years ago. We mean non-human. It's all the same thing. We mean alien. We mean not human. People, that's the generalization. Same with alien. We don't mean us. Oh, well, actually, these are technically humans, but they're from 10,000 years in the future and they've just traveled. Right, okay, that's fine.
Semantics.
I don't really care. It's not us, and it's classified as alien. That's what we mean. And I think I always get that, and I appreciate there's reasons Grush may or may not have said what he said. I do agree with Davis there, though, that at the end of the day, it's UFOs, it's aliens, and everything that entails.
That's a good point.
It is interesting, though, that people like Grush and Lou, and even, talking to Dylan, none of these guys say ET. None of them say alien ever. Almost ever.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Is that a little bit of misinformation, disinformation, and not necessarily from them, but is that just the level potentially they're involved at where those conversations don't happen and that they are told that, like the other day on the Glenn Beck interview where Luna gets asked about, what's her response? She responds with saying, all I'll say is energy is real. I think he asks him, are these things alien, essentially? And she goes, well, that word, all I'll say is energy is real. I mean, what is that as an answer? That's so confused and convoluted and trying potentially to be clever for the sake of being clever.
I think it has to do with her own religious bias. The same conversation that I've been having with Chris Bledsoe. It's just the same. She's a Christian. She believes, she's been posting shit about angels and ancient scripture for a while. She has that bias, I think. That's what that means, I think.
Yeah. Last couple, Eric Davis believes the Corona or Roswell crash happened. He began investigating crash retrievals in 1998 and interviewed Brigadier General Arthur Exon. Davis claims Exxon knew people connected to the recovery, and the case involved a damaged craft, debris, and 4 small grey-type beings. So we get the greys in there. He says OSAP was not read into the legacy crash retrieval program. He said OSAP had top secret SCI level access, but not the deeper waived, unacknowledged SAP access needed for legacy crash retrieval material. He says he and Hal Puthoff were trying to locate or gain access to those older programs, but did not have the required need to know. So that probably gives you those layers of the onion. I'll just, before you come in, Pavel, let me just add, because the last point is related to that again. He claims the aerospace company side of the program was shut down in 1989 due to lack of progress, but that the CIA could periodically reissue materials every 10 years to see whether science and engineering had caught up. He also says some material may have been retained by companies and that there was a failed plan to bring some of it into scientific study via Earth Tech.
Just making a little connection here, because I thought that was a really interesting point that he made there. And it just takes me back to 1989, which is when Bob Lazar was coming out, right? So could it be that before 1989, when Dr. Davis was allegedly working in classified stuff, Puthoff said in that interview with Gerb that a lot of the work that the scientists were making was taken away from them, like abruptly, when that happened. I just wonder if whenever the whole Bob Lazar thing happened, that's what forced them to just go like, we got to shut this down, and nobody can talk about it. And not even Eric Davis, who potentially worked on classified programs before the 1989 Bob Lazar story came out. So maybe that could be one of the reasons why every time they ask him about it, he's like, he's full of shit.
I struggle with the idea that they put it away into cold storage. Like how every so often they redo James Bond, and it comes back a little bit more edgy, a little bit more up to date, a new actor in charge, and they redo the franchise. I don't see that they've got alien technology and that they literally go, right, guys, that's it, closed for the 2010s. Let's close the shutter. We'll come back to this in 2029 and see where we're at there. This stuff is, I'm not talking about as if I know, but surely this stuff would be too sensitive, too advanced, too precious to not be working on it 24/7. I
too
can't
exciting.
believe.
Too exciting not to just like
people would clock off at 5 o'clock, Dan, and go home, and they turn the lights out and the craft just sits there, or does another shift come in and work on it, and then another shift.
But to be fair, let's say you've had something in your facility since 1952, and then 40 years later, you've learned nothing. Maybe you would slow down. Maybe you wouldn't have 24-hour shifts going on. Maybe it would be the kind of thing where, let's take a crack at this for 6 months every year and see where we get, and then chill out for a minute. So at a certain point, with no progress, I can see why you might slow down. But to stop it completely, no, I don't think so.
This is where we get to the sea change, because I don't know if you guys remember that interview that came out on American Alchemy, Neon Galactic, and I think Gerb's channel too, where they interviewed Dr. Davis. He talks about how he got a lot of flack for eating the salad and all that, right? But in that interview, he specifically told Gerb to his face that ARVs are not a thing. They're not real. And we know that Gerb, this is like his whole thing. He is convinced that they're real and that we have working ARVs as part of the government, the U.S. government. In this interview, and I'm just going to show you this clip right here, where Davis talks about Gerb about 4 times. He calls him Sammy Gerb, which I thought was hilarious. This is where we see a different opinion from Davis, where he seems to change his tune on whether there is reverse engineered craft or technology. And I'm going to show it to you right here, because I think this was a very important part of the whole conversation, the meat of the conversation, in my opinion. So here it is.
To the program being shut down in '89. So Gerb pushed back on this podcast. And by the way, folks, he is an excellent researcher. And the question was around this, the program being shut down, as you said, in 1989. Is that firsthand information that you know, or were you told this? It was firsthand.
Firsthand from the legacy program.
What happened?
You got to pay your Wi-Fi bill, buddy.
It shuts down.
I mean, we didn't.
Senior VP at that one company, and he was not talking about his company. He was talking about all of the companies. And the problem is, Hal hit a milestone birthday last month, and he's older than God. You know, God love him, and his memory is not quite as sharp at the detailed information level. So Hal forgot. He's forgotten.
Sure.
So the first-hand information is that the entire legacy program was shut down in 80.
Hold on. What the hell? This is weird.
That's a wild statement. Wow.
Yeah, this was a wild one, I think. But let me refresh. Hold on.
Just saying Hal was wrong. I mean, yes, he could be, right?
God love him. And his memory is not quite as sharp at the detailed information level. So Hal forgot. He's forgotten.
Sure.
So the first-hand information is that the entire legacy program was shut down in 89. But the CIA, what Hal forgot to say is that maybe Hal didn't think he could say it, but I will say it. The CIA, I'm sorry, the legacy that senior VP said the CIA will bring it out once every 10 years and give new contracts to the companies, and then they will bring it, and then they will receive the materials back, and they will attempt to use. Now we're 10 years into the future from the shutdown, and it may take, and they may not be successful, but they get a contract, they get the materials, they work on it, and they say, we still can't figure it out. So they put it back into cold storage again for another 10-year period. CIA comes back, says, okay, try again. So they're going to keep doing this until the laboratory diagnostic instrumentation, physics theories, applied physics, and engineering principles catch up. And then when that next 10-year period comes, that it gets resurfaced for another look by the legacy programs, legacy companies, then they may get successful. And I think, given what Lukatsky said about the triangular-shaped craft, which I had never heard about, not just me, but several of us on the OSAP at the contractor level, that tells me that somebody somewhere got successful. And now, since the companies can't talk to each other, it won't be Boeing and Lockheed. It won't be Lockheed and Raytheon. And it won't be Raytheon and Northrop Grumman or some combination thereof of all that. It could be somebody else, even Battelle. By the way, Battelle Memorial Institute was another one. So that's one that Sammy didn't think about. They are an FFRDC, and they had a hand in UFO material analysis for Project Blue Book, and they had a classified report, top secret. Jacques nicknamed it the Pentacle Memo in his first volume of Forbidden Science. And unfortunately, the modern versions of that book you can get, the updated, newer version, they don't have that damn memo in it. You have to go back and get the old one with the green paperback cover, and it's got the Pentacle Memo reproduced in it. So it's been allegedly declassified. I think it has been declassified finally. So
that's enough. We've seen him denying this for a while, multiple times, and now he's like not so sure about it because of what Lukatsky said. So, and this also talks a lot about the division that there is between people from the OSAP crew and, I don't know if Davis and Putoff and all that, those guys, because Lukatsky has been criticizing Lou Elizondo very publicly, that he wasn't part of any program really, that ATIP wasn't real. He said that, but now it doesn't seem like Dr. Davis is so sure that reverse engineering was not successful based on what Lukatsky has stated. What are your thoughts on that, though? I thought that was very, very important.
I think it's really important for me, right, in this topic, to not think that any one person is totally infallible. And there's this thing that people put on any individual, that once they make a mistake or say something slightly wrong, or they misconnect a dot somewhere, that's them out. And I think people have to be careful with Gerb not to do this. He is a guy, and I see all the jokes about Gerb not being human, right? Probably not. Like I said, that level of the way he speaks and how he speaks, the eloquency, the intelligence, the knowledge isn't normal. That's not something that if I just read lots and lots and lots, I could do. I will never be able to retain that level of information and speak about it in that way. The closest I got was early 2000s WWF pay-per-views, right? Back in the day. And it still wasn't that level of confidence. So there's like a savant level, I've said before, for me around Gerb and how he is, he speaks, how his brain and mind works. So we have to be careful that as and when anyone in this topic is pointed out as having got something wrong, and that includes Putov, Elizondo, Coulthard, Corbell. I'm just trying to name different things here, not just individuals. Gerb, Davis, that it means there's something wrong. These people don't all work together. And I think what it points to, and I hope this makes sense the way I'm talking, is there's not like a big truth that a group of individuals know, that you can pick him, her, him, and her, and go, this is the group, and they know the truth. Because I think different silos know different things, and sometimes they intermingle and they know a little bit different stuff. So Davis's point to me makes sense, that I actually like the fact he's changed his tune, and that, oh, well, actually, and I've always said your opinion should be fluid. Oh, well, Lukatsky said this. So based on what he knows of Lukatsky and what Lukatsky said probably publicly and privately, if he's saying that, then for Davis, that seems to be good enough that something did change, and that someone down the line, again, if us three all have parts of UFOs and we're all working on these for various different reasons, if I'm a private contractor and there are billions or trillions of dollars at stake here, reputation, future contracts, money, national security, am I phoning Pavel and Dan when I crack something and going, by the way, I need to share this with you both? Or am I keeping this to myself and letting the guys in government know, listen, I've made a breakthrough here? You're probably doing the latter. That's what's happening. They're not phoning around and sharing the good news with everyone. In the same way, pharmaceutical companies and drug companies don't make a breakthrough and share the recipe with everyone, do they? No, they keep their cocktail for them and they monetize it. That's what I probably think's happening here, that it's refreshing. And it's that whole thing about talking in absolutes, where I like the fact that Davis has went, actually, I've changed my mind on this. Here's why. And it makes sense to me. And I get not everyone might agree with that. And to that point, again, just to hammer home, Gerb has this, for what some folks think, flawless record. You have to at least pay attention to a guy like Davis coming out and saying, actually, there's some things he might have got wrong there. And that's where I'd love to speak to Gerb in a long form interview in a different way that he's maybe done before, and have that conversation around how he handles this. And he goes down very specific routes, but I would love to know how he chooses his angles of attack. Does he leave out anything particularly because it's either not relevant, he's not interested, or it doesn't fit into a piece that he's working on and trying to get to the bottom of something? What does that whole structure and process for him look like? In the same way, like working with musicians, Dan, how somebody figures out a track or a lyric or a piece of music, where they keep going back to it and back to it and back to it, and you see the handwritten lyrics to one of your favorite songs are a little bit different to what you end up hearing in the polished record.
Of course.
So like Gerb's whole process is not going to be flawless. The people behind Gerb, who he gets his information from, it's not just a guy who's well researched at this point. I'm sorry, that's just not what it is. But I think there's definitely happy mediums there. Yeah, so I'll let somebody else come in on that.
Dan?
I like what you said about Davis changing his mind. And it was the exact same thought that I had. I think the fact that he was like, I might have been wrong about this, will now make me put more, not faith, but I will listen more closely to what Davis says now, because he is someone who can be like, I might have been wrong. And he's open to learn more about it. I think that's a huge step. It's one of my favorite things about people is when people can expand their view on something or admit maybe they were incorrect. It's huge. So it makes me put more stock in what Lukatsky says, which I already kind of had. I think the fact that Davis gives him such respect for his opinion is huge. And like I said, now Davis going back on it is a huge step for me. And a little bit, I like Davis already, but a little bit more respect than I even had before.
Can I add something? When I was watching the Hal Putov and Gerb, and I think some folks viewed it as an interrogation, Gerb was phenomenal. He put a lot of stuff to Putov where I am imagining in that moment, Putov sitting thinking a lot of what this guy's saying is correct. I'm also imagining Putov's going, some of that's not quite right. That's a little confused. But Putov can't come out and say that.
He can't correct it. He can't correct it.
Yeah, at least. Yeah. No, you know what? You're saying this company was involved. That's not correct, because what you're then doing is telling him that there was another company. So you just let him speak, and you work it out from there. Like, I sorry to analogize everything, right? That's my Gerbism, where I love analogies. Folks know that now. Like when you're playing a computer game and you've got Mario World 1 of 1. And you've got 1, 1, 1, 2, 1, 3, 1, 4, 1, 5, 1, 6. And you're talking about you're an expert on those levels, but you've not got to number 2 yet. And then you see the bigger map. Putov's probably sitting thinking, or a Davis, about the bigger map that maybe Gerb doesn't have the exposure to because no one does. But Gerb's probably working his way to those places at some point. Do you help him get there? Do you let him get there on his own? Or are there places that he won't get to without being pointed in the right direction?
I think that actually happened in the interview, because there was a moment when Eric Davis was basically telling Gerb, it's like, the people you're naming and
Hal Hal, you mean?
Davis in this interview.
Oh, okay.
He said the people you're naming, I mean, you can name them, you have to. I think they're like part of the problem, but Davis was like, those are not the gatekeepers. And that gave me an indication of what you're saying, Andy, that they do have like a broader probably idea of the whole situation. And Gerb is probably going to get to that eventually. And I just want to know, like, if Davis is so sure that those are not the gatekeepers, the ones that Gerb has been naming in his channel, who are the gatekeepers? And he says that they're from AFOSI, counterintelligence, and that every single cell, every single agency within the government has a counterintelligence sort of operation in favor of the legacy program. And he thinks those are exactly the gatekeepers, not necessarily the security people that Gerb has been mentioning, like Terry Phillips and all of these people.
Can I fire through some of the quotes specifically about Gerb from Davis? And this will hopefully allow people who haven't seen it. But again, I'm sure Pavel and Dan are the same. I always stress, if you can, go and check out the original content from Matt Ford. So on Gerb getting the gatekeepers wrong, Davis said, so you're going to have 2 or 3 or 4 government guys plus the gatekeepers. That's another thing Sammy got wrong. He's a young guy. He's not 30 years. He doesn't have 30 years of experience that I have. And then he says, see, we got to understand Sammy doesn't grasp that there's a distinction. The legacy program's jargon, those 2 words refer to the aerospace defense industry. It doesn't refer to the government offices, because government program offices and intelligence and in the military or Department of Defense, Department of War, they get reorganized. They constantly get reorganized. So this is a point on Gerb being young or lacking experience. So I have to remind you that Sammy's young, he's green, he doesn't have a PhD in anything or a master's. I don't even know if he has a bachelor's degree. The point is he doesn't know these distinctions, and the distinction is program offices in the government, they constantly change. On Gerb naming the wrong labs, and unfortunately, Sammy named Livermore and Oak Ridge. He couldn't be more wrong. It's the other 2. So the context here being, I think the relevant labs were Los Alamos and Idaho National Lab, not Livermore and Oak Ridge. So that might be a point where Davis is perhaps trying to feed Gerb some information.
Yeah, help him out.
Yeah, in that clip we saw him mention Battelle Memorial Institute was another one. So that's one Sammy didn't think about. You can look at that as being barbed or pointed, but he's pointing in a direction. So I'm sure Gerb takes that the right way and goes, okay, let me go down that route. He says, I know from talking with him during the OSAP and during the ATIP and during his task force that I gave him enough information. I think this is Lou, he's talking about Elizondo, that he used to track down who the gatekeeper is. And that's another thing Sammy Gerb confused all of the audience in that. But anyways, Sammy got that wrong about Lou. Lou was, and he goes, about Jay. I think he was talking about Lou, but Jay. So again, he's gone back and forward with Elizondo and Stratton. And then the clearest quote here on what Eric thinks Gerb got wrong. So the gatekeepers, that's where Sammy fell down. Sammy was naming programs, program offices, the office of this, the office of that, the director of this, the director of that. He said, that sounds like one of those books I read my little boy at night. The director of this, the director of that. He said, those are the gatekeepers. That's what he's implying were the gatekeepers. They are not the gatekeepers. They are the program offices. He got it wrong. You want to target them? Yes, absolutely. But they are not the gatekeepers. The gatekeepers are, here's the clue, here's the hint. Hold on to your chair. The counterintelligence officers. Those are some direct quotes.
I wonder if this might be a case of how each of them define a gatekeeper.
Yeah.
You know, someone just standing in the way, someone trying to get you off the scent or off the trail could be considered a gatekeeper, trying to distract somebody. Or there's people that are really making serious decisions to keep things quiet.
Or somebody who has potentially harmed people who have been looking into this. And those are also considered gatekeepers by some people, right?
Don't know.
I mean, they would, by definition, they're keeping the secret by offing people. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or at least making the decision to have that done.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there are other levels of gatekeepers. I think sometimes we can think gatekeepers. They are the guys that once you get in that room, okay, you made it here, Dan. Here's all the truth. Maybe there's folk in that room that go, listen, we work on this aspect of the topic. We are strongly kept away from these elements. You know, you don't make a new technology. Like I worked for a satellite company when they made their last cable box. Parts of it were manufactured in China, other parts were manufactured in Turkey, other parts were manufactured in the UK. Those organizations didn't know what they were making, the ultimate product. They knew the specifications of the bit they were making to keep it secret until NDAs were passed and all that kind of stuff. So surely the UFO conversation would be the same, where no matter how high-ranking you are, outside of a truly select, chosen less than 10 people, you don't know the full Colonel's secret recipe.
I agree.
Yep.
Completely agree.
Or, 90% truth, 10% bullshit, just to make sure that things are kept murky.
Interesting. It was a really good interview, man. Kudos to Matt Ford for a really good interview. They left a lot of new stuff there, and for people to try and look for other avenues. I think that he handled talking about Gerb okay, because Gerb has been like going against people like him for a while, and he showed class there. I think he wasn't disrespectful. He wasn't rude or anything. I really like that. That was a good sign for me.
And Gerb's a big boy. I'm sure Gerb can handle himself, and he seems intelligent. I'm not going to say intelligent enough because that's condescending. He's intelligent on a level that he can take what he needs from any of those comments from Putov, from Davis, and it gives him direction one way or another.
Also, one thing that I do got to say there, because this is what happened with Gerb being part of that Fresh Freedom podcast. It wasn't planned. He was like there, and I think Burleson invited him.
Yeah,
it wasn't. Yeah. It was like in the heat of the moment, and he took the opportunity that fell in his lap, and he just ran with it. And had he had time to plan it a little bit more, I think it would have come out a little differently than it did.
Yeah,
I think so. I don't think that he would have been probably as on the nose with Hal, because there were moments when you could clearly see Gerb going like, I don't agree with that. Like his face was like, when Avi Loeb said that he didn't like the past and that we had to look into the future, you could see Gerb squirming like, what the fuck is this guy talking about, right? And it probably would have been a little bit different, I think. And the
But
questions
those looks
would
are
have been,
good. Those looks are
Yeah, yeah,
important
yeah.
though, because those
Yeah.
looks speak for, I think, all of us. You know,
Yeah.
But for me though, Gerb, I think I said last time, Gerb's not an interviewer. I don't. What I would want to see is Putov or that type of guy on one side, Gerb on another, and a mediator in the middle to actually hone the questions. Because sometimes, and this isn't just me, Gerb can say so much. Sometimes it's too much in a question, and I can feel sometimes that I get the gist of the question, but I didn't need all the acronyms. I need that dumbed down a little bit. And could you get more by asking less? So would a Joe Rogan, perhaps in the middle of that, be able to go, I'm not going to sit and tell Gerb, well, shut up, I don't know what you're talking about, or Putov, but someone with that level of, respect to be able to say, Gerb, whoa, dumb that down for me, because that makes no sense. What are you actually trying to ask here? And then when Putov or a Davis or someone tries to be a dick about the question, you can go, no, Gerb's making a really fair point. He's asking you this, at least at a base level. And that's what I would want to see. So you've got Gerb, who is literally the brain, the knowledge, the guy who is putting sledgehammers at the door here, but you just need someone to refine it and narrow it down for me. So guys like Putov, Davis, counterintelligence, other guys can't worm their way out of stuff. And yeah, that's what I would like to see, but that's a personal opinion.
I will say, I know you said that Gerb is not an interviewer. I know what you mean by that, but I will say, I think he actually is a great one. I've spent quite a bit of time with him privately too, and seen him have conversations with intelligent folks, and he changes the way he asks questions depending on who he's talking to, and I think what he's trying to figure out. So he does have the ability to, dumb down questions and make it more straightforward, and he does that. I mean, privately, he's a pretty phenomenal interviewer. I mean, he knows what he's trying to get at.
In that instance, though, it was like Pavel said, it was barbed and right at him, not prepared. I mean, you say not prepared, but I mean, he sounded prepared.
Well, he asked questions he's been wondering for years. He's asked the question in his head a million times.
I would just love to see it directed a little bit differently to maybe get the most out of the questions and some of these guys' answers. Because again, just as an audience member, if I don't understand the question, then it won't just be me. So then am I going to understand the answer?
Yeah.
But that's where, for me, Gerb should be on Burleson's staff working behind the scenes on this. Like, that why is he not there? Why not, Pavel? Why is he not there?
I wouldn't necessarily say he's not.
Well, I was going to say, unless he is now. Because it sounds like he's the type of guy who should be helping.
It makes sense that he is helping with a lot of stuff to not just Burleson, but everybody involved there. It just makes sense. I mean, if you're smart enough, you could tell that there's a lot of stuff that Gerb talks about that is probably coming directly from Grush. And I don't have information on this or anything. It's just me assuming things. I've actually asked directly about this, and they've given me can't tell you anything. So
back
I'm just assuming. I'm just assuming.
Yeah, obviously. What happens when you assume. But to my point, Dan, about Gerb being wasted by interviewing someone, people might be like, I've seen comments of, I want to see Gerb with Putov for 2.5 hours asking questions. I'd rather know Gerb was behind the scenes in a room with no time limit and with no microphones dealing with this, because you could put me in with those guys. I'm not going to be able to get any progress made politically, scientifically, academically. I don't have that respect. You put a Gerb in that room and a guy who can literally say, no, this is correct because X, Y, Z, W, all the letters of the alphabet. That's where you need a Gerb. That for me is, otherwise you're wasting a 5-star chef in a cafe making sandwiches.
I think the three of us enjoy interviewing people and enjoy talking to people and having those conversations. I don't think that Gerb wants to be an interviewer. I don't think he wants to do that stuff. If he talks to someone, it's not for like entertainment. It's not for like, let me show off my skills. He literally just wants answers to things. Yeah. I don't think he wants to be, you know, Jesse or anybody. I think he just wants to make his films and learn and get to the bottom of stuff for the benefit of everybody.
Yeah.
Yep. So can we go through some questions, if that's okay with you guys? How many do you have, Andy? I got like 8 singled out right now. Some of them are super chats.
I've just got a couple that were sent in to me. Anyone in the That UFO podcast chat, I can't keep up with all the different stuff. So if someone puts a question in from the YouTube chat now, I could maybe grab it. But yeah, go for it.
Okay, let's the first super chat. Thank you to Luke Yellowtail. It says, if either of you get a chance to talk to Matt Brown, ask him to break down his first X post. It seems like no one has asked him personally. Esotericism. I'm not sure if I can answer that, but I would guess that if he does that, he would probably do it in like a major podcast, and the podcaster asks him or something like that. What do you guys think?
Dan?
I think you're right. Yeah, he hasn't done any big interviews except for Weaponized since he first came out.
Yeah, no.
I don't know. I'm sure someone will get to him at some point, and I also don't know how into detail he will go. I don't know that he would answer it.
Or if the interviewer is going to be well versed enough to ask him about that, right? Because we don't know. If honestly, if I'm completely honest with you, I don't think Joe Rogan is going to ask him about that specifically if he ever goes on Joe Rogan. However, if he goes, for example, and with Jesse or with Chris on Area 52 or something like that, he will probably get asked that question. We'll be one of the first ones, right?
I'd like to think Matt and or Dylan are going to be on some of these podcasts in the near future. I mean, the Vanguard stuff's launched, and I think before we finish, we need to talk about that. So I would love to see them on some of these platforms too, because you get a level of conversation on a Rogan, on a Sean Ryan, in a 3-hour format. I think you get some drilled down, more pointed questions on some of the lesser shows.
Mm-hmm.
Yep,
I agree.
Okay. Here's another one. Thank you for the super chat. It says, I'm worried the government will introduce us a-hole aliens once they have deals with, instead of nice factions who avoid our toxic government. That's an interesting comment right there. What do you guys think?
That kind of reminds me of what Luna said about when the guy asked her in that interview, you know, are we dealing with a defense thing or a spiritual thing? And she said, well, with my pin on, basically when I'm on the job, it's a threat thing. So I think this question is kind of talking about that. Like, we'll be told about the ones that we should be scared of before we hear about the ones that are like friendlies. Probably. I think they still have to push the threat thing to get people really interested, to get your attention. You need to be told that you're in danger somehow. And then also to get that budget money, you know?
Andy?
I think the US government should keep their nose out of football and stop rescinding red cards where they're not being asked to do it for a start, like before we talk about disclosure.
I knew you were going to say something about this.
Of all the thing Donald Trump's done, he can keep his fucking nose out of football, and yeah, that's utter nonsense. But of all the stuff for me to get annoyed at Trump about,
and that's great.
Yeah, the deal stuff's really weird, because do you really think we've got the Chinese, the Russian, and the US governments in touch with different races being played off against each other? That seems a stretch to me. Perhaps an entity or group are in touch with one government, maybe multiple, I don't know. The whole a-hole alien stuff like that, I think the bad ones we would have met by now or know about. I don't think anything that's interacting with us or has been interacting with us or is necessarily observing us is mega, mega bad. I think they might be indifferent. I think they might be a little bit, don't F up your planet too bad or we will step in. But at this point, we've done a lot of... So here's the point, Pavel, I'm intrigued to see what you're going to come in with here. So I'll make this point first. we have done, I think, all the bad things that a species could do to itself, we have pretty much done, other than annihilate ourselves, unless we have done that in the past and we are another iteration of it, right? But right now, if you look at the stuff that happens to kids, and I'll protect the algorithm here, the unalivings, the genocides, the wars, the nuclear testing that kills all the fish, the underground testing, the mining the planet of all its resources. We are doing about pollution. Every bad thing imaginable has happened over and over and over again. If at this point an NHI hasn't come down and went stop, what exactly would it be waiting on?
I just wonder that urge to take someone's life historically. I just wonder if that is really a human evolutionary trait, or if it also involves some kind of manipulation or influence to make us want to take somebody else's life. And this goes
animal
into
trait.
this goes into the whole ethereal conversation of what the phenomenon is, and how there has been probably potentially influence to pin us against each other and kill each other. I don't know if that is real or not, but there's certainly been like a constant war between different factions throughout humanity's history. And I would like to know, what if a lot of that is influenced by something else so it can happen?
I think we
I
do it,
don't know.
like Dan says, naturally. It goes back to being like cavemen and stuff like that, and protecting your family, protecting your food, protecting your cave.
We're
That's a
animals.
different thing. That's a different thing than carpet bombing entire populations of people with children and
Not
old
really.
people.
That's
What,
I
what,
think
about,
so.
what about like Africa then, for example, where they don't have carpet bombing, but they have guys with machetes that will just run through a village and slaughter anyone in sight because their religion pronounces a word slightly differently?
Which is they're doing that because it's better for their community and their family. In their
That's what
minds.
they
Or they
think.
just
In their
like
minds.
doing it.
Yes, that's what they think.
Yeah. So
Not that it's necessarily right? That's
Yeah,
what they
some of them
think.
do, clearly.
I mean, there's factions of chimpanzees right now that are in the midst of right now of a civil war between different groups of chimps, where like at night they'll go into other chimp villages and like kill all the children and kill the males, and then there'll be like revenge. Like that's happening amongst Animal Kingdom all the time.
It sounds like Dan got stoned and watched Planet of the Apes and thought it was they had this
Listen,
History Channel or
I'm starting to
or
get
Animal
really
Planet or something.
resentful of people making jokes about my drug use. Okay, I'm making it real personal. It's
They
just
should be
Dan
making
gets the
fun of
movie channel
me.
mixed up with National Geographic. Oh shit, these apes are going crazy, man. Look.
yeah, no shit. No, but I think it's part
All
of
right.
it's part of being an animal, is just that urge to kill and protect and hoard resources and goods and food, and be suspect of everyone and everything around you. It sucks,
Yeah,
but I think that's the way it is.
I'm with Dan on that one.
Okay, just a question. Okay, so here's another one that I think is interesting. After hundreds of hours of interviews, what's the one question you believe the UFO community should be asking that almost nobody is?
I saw this earlier. This is like whenever I do listener questions for like a big interview, the one that used to always come up would be, what's the one question that X hasn't been asked yet that we should be asking them? And see, whenever you ask it, it just gets circumnavigated. Like it's a really hard one because it's so subjective, and I hate to now Moonman be the person to circumnavigate your question, because it could be, who are the people that should be called out as being full of shit. The question, I mean, one that would be fair would be, has anyone been keeping tabs of all the timelines of folks that have posted loads of predictions or loads of sources say this is happening soon, and see when it's not happened, they don't get called out on it, and their followers and people who look after them and their numbers keep going up. There's no consequence for it. There's a couple of, and like I say, I stay out of the jibes and the drama by naming folk, but there's a few reasonably big channels that got big doing that, making stuff up, never been called out on it, and just moving on to the next thing the following week, the next live show, the next sensationalism. And yeah, that really frustrates me. I don't make predictions. I just commentate. You can like it, you can disagree, you can not. That's totally fine. It's generally my opinion based on how I am, what I think, and that can change. But yeah, I would love the UFO community to be asking a little bit more. I suppose that's one for someone to have kind of kept a spreadsheet and loaded it into an AI and been like, spot patterns of bullshit.
Dan?
I have no idea how to answer this question. I have no idea. I think every question's been asked. Should be asking that almost nobody is. I think all the important questions are being asked.
To me, there is one important question that almost nobody asks. What is aliens' sense of humor like? Or do they even have a sense of humor? Could it be that they're just like, at some points, just fucking with us? Do you guys remember when the whole drone phenomenon was happening at Lake and Heath? And then there was this like video of a guy, one of these lights that was like sending a Morse code, that they were saying something along the lines of we come in peace or something like that. What if that was actually an NHI and they were just fucking with people and just like having a ball? That's something that
they had a sense of humor. I would appreciate that.
Yeah. That's a question that isn't asked too much, really.
Do you know, on that, Pavel, to take that slightly different way, but keep the nature of it. People like Davis talking about, like, telling guys like Gerb, oh, you're wrong with this, but you could be right with this. I would love to know, what are some of the videos or pictures out there now that are legitimate that people maybe think are hoaxes or get debunked or are not real? Because there will be some videos and pictures, and I don't mean like the Skinny Bob video, but maybe it is, but you know, stuff that people maybe don't realize that a Davis or a Putov or someone really in the know, perhaps a Gerb, could point and go, see this video's online, no one looks at it, no one cares about it, it's not a speck of light, it's not a dot, it's not something fuzzy. People think this is AI or CGI or no, this is a legitimate video. And the closest one for me would be the Turkey VHS stuff, Kurenberg or whatever it's called.
Kummergas.
Unless it's a cruise ship in the night, which I hope not. But yeah, I know that's the common debunk, but I don't think so.
I want to know so much about. There's two videos I want to know a lot about. The triangle over the water. That's like, you know, the TR3B type thing that's just kind of rotating over the water. The guy's filming at night. You can hear water running. And then the one of the car with the thing spinning above the car that goes up into the sky. You know, the light shining down on the car. You guys seen that one? You know what I'm talking about?
No.
All right, I'll send it to you guys in the chat. It's two great videos that make me feel weird. It makes me feel weird when I see them, and I'm like, I want to know about those.
Can I just say, because Dan, Pavel and I want to do this kind of weekly or every couple of weeks. You make it a regular kind of Monday show. If people want to send in their questions like that, what is not being asked that people think should be being asked, and also that would get an answer, then we could read that kind of stuff out. Would be quite good. So yeah.
Yep. It's nice that we have Doomer Friday, and now we're kind of getting something on Mondays going, which I like.
Moaning Monday.
Yeah.
Mirthful Monday. You got another one? Another question?
Or like this guy says, happy Meltdown Monday.
Meltdown Monday.
Thanks for all your helping to break down all these fascinating topics. Thank you, David. And he also sent a super chat to you, Andy, right here. That was for you.
Shall I read it out then in my voice? Andy, Pavel, and Dan making an otherwise rotten Monday a lot better. The new shed looks great, Andy. David's a cool guy, not just because he gave us $4.99.
I met him at Contact. He was speaking to everybody. He has a really cool energy. So thank you, man.
That's nice, because you weren't speaking to Eric Davis at Contact, were you? He ran away from you.
Yeah. He told us to bugger off. Basically, me and Missile Man.
Well, do you know what?
So-
I really appreciate someone in the chats kept us up to date with the football score and said 1-0 to Spain. Thanks.
oh, who scored? Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
stick in
you.
the chat
That's
who scored
nice.
for Spain. Thanks, folks.
That's nice, dude. Merino on the 91st minute. Whoa. Poor Ronaldo. That's his last game, I think.
Yeah, good. He's no Messi.
Yeah, he's
Um,
not.
more
Your
questions,
questions
Pavel?
next. Yours.
Oh, my question's
Yeah,
next.
I'm
So
done.
I had some random stuff. Are we going to mention Vanguard before we go off as well? Because
Oh yeah,
Live,
we
yep.
can continue with that and then finish with your questions if that's okay with you.
yeah, let's go into Vanguard because I think that's really important to bring up.
Yeah. So Matthew Brown and Dylan Borland last Saturday finally announced the Vanguard website where you can go, and if you want to support them or people like them, you can go there. We're going to leave it in the description after the show. But to me, the most important part of Vanguard is that this is intended to encourage people who are not public yet to come forward and get the support that they are fearing they won't get if they come forward. And this is something that I said on my video where I speak about this, is that the goal really for Vanguard is to not need Vanguard. If there is some kind of executive order where whistleblowers are protected the way Vanguard is trying to protect them, Vanguard is not going to be, is not going to continue, I think. Would you guys agree with that?
Yeah, can I just read the launch statement from them, Pavel, on the
Sure.
X post? So
Sure.
they said, today, on the 250th anniversary of our nation, we launched the Vanguard Enterprise. For decades, Americans inside the national security enterprise have carried knowledge of extraordinary public consequence. Some have come forward lawfully, many have paid a terrible price. Washington has many systems for protecting secrets. Vanguard is building one for protecting the people who tell the truth. Founded by UAP whistleblowers Dylan Borland and Matthew Brown, Vanguard is a civilian-led 501 non-profit focused on UAP whistleblower support, public education, and lawful disclosure. Our mission is simple: protect the whistleblowers, disclose the truth, and ensure that no warrior for the truth is left behind. On that, can I ask your thoughts on, I had said a few weeks ago on Do My Friday shows and my own show, the Disclosure Foundation, that was previously the Disclosure Fund, people were questioning where the money was going because you've got this fund and the whistleblowers are not getting the money. So much so they're having to set up their own organization to try and fund legal help, bill help, all that kind of stuff. Then at the Disclosure Forum, the Disclosure Foundation donated $10,000 to Vanguard. Is that PR? Is that them changing direction? What do you think that is?
I don't think it matters. I personally don't care at the moment. I get what you're saying, but I'm just glad that people that need help at the moment have gotten some.
Yeah.
And so far as I can tell, whatever the reason for doing it, they've done more than anybody else so far. So I'll take it as a positive and a win, no matter what.
And they realized that there was some kind of discomfort when to take you down the timeline, when Matthew Brown announced or semi-announced that this was happening on a weaponized show. I think it was at around the same week when the Disclosure Foundation announced their own fund. And there were also talks of Soul potentially doing the same thing. Dr. Gary Nolan is on record saying that they needed some kind of whistleblower fund to help them. And I think this was sort of taken as maybe this is some kind of competition, which shouldn't be. And I'm glad that it was corrected and that the Disclosure Foundation extended a helping hand to Matthew and Dylan. So if there was a misunderstanding, it was fixed, I think. And so far, I agree with Dan here, but we're still going to keep an eye out on whatever happens, I think.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts, Andy?
I know a lot of folks were really keen on supporting Borland and Brown.
Mm-hmm.
When they came forward, there was a real empathy, and I think people gravitated to both of them. The way they spoke, they were both very different. It wasn't like an act, and they both came out looking like, you know, two sides of the same coin. They both sounded nervous. They both sounded a little unsure, in a natural way, you know, not about what they were talking about. And that really affected a lot of folks, and they wanted to help out. And I just wanted to make sure that if folks want to do that, the links will be in the description for the website for the donation options. I also understand there will be people wanting to hear probably more from Matthew and Dylan both before they go ahead and donate. So that's what I hope we get. I would love to speak to Borland and Brown tomorrow. You know, that's not going to happen. I hope they get to go on a Sean Ryan, a Joe Rogan, a massive platform, and have that conversation. And then guys like us can kind of feed off of the scraps. But yeah, I hope people that want to donate go and do that now. I get, and I think the guys went about it the right way doing this, because they did speak to people to get opinions, and they are aware of how many of these organizations come out and ask for people's money, and then where does it go? I think when you talk about transparency and all that kind of stuff, you know, that's really important, and where things may or may not go in terms of finances, it means a lot to people. So yeah, I think they're doing it the right way. I get they're kind of hamstrung maybe in terms of what they can say. They can't exactly go and show us receipts every other week to say, we have paid someone's legal bill, we have funded someone's rent for the month. That's not how this is going to work. But yeah, I'd love to get Pavel's thoughts, but it looks like he's frozen, Dan. So
he's just very calm right now. He's just
unless he's just really intensely reading some comments on the screen.
He's now gone.
Yeah, he's now dropped out the chat, so no doubt he'll be back in. I'm glad you're on with me though, because otherwise I'd just be sitting kind of hanging fire myself here.
That would be interesting.
Yeah.
I'm with you. I'm proud of those guys. I'm proud of what they're doing. I'm proud of the way that they've gone about doing it. I know that you've spoken to them as well, and I find them to be highly trustworthy, and I sincerely believe that they will do the right thing with those funds. And I'm glad that there's a place that people can donate directly to the people that need it directly. No middleman. Yep.
Speaking of people needing financial support, just while we wait on Pavel coming back, Anomalous Cards just put a super chat in, and I know Anomalous Cards sponsor Pavel's podcast. And I checked out the website, by the way, Anomalous Cards, even though you don't care about me and have never spoken to me about them. They look really cool. Said, with speculation about reasons for the NHI or nuke connection, a leading theory has been that threats from nukes might also put NHI at risk. Anyone considered, if possible, emerging threat posed by AI could be influencing NHI or UAP. So I'm wondering, is that like a kind of Skynet type scenario where AI decides to nuke the planet? And you know, I'm not too sure. I have always subscribed to the idea that when we started messing about with atomic weapons, with nuclear weapons back in the 30s and 40s, whenever those earliest tests were, did we knock on the door of something else? And that's why Pavel shit at his job, Dan, basically.
I agree, Pavel, dude. Sorry. Oh, shit, there he is.
This shit kicked me out, man. I don't know what happened, but I'm back.
Yeah, sorry. I've just read the super chat if you want to stick it on screen from Anomalous Cards.
Oh, yeah.
And we were just having a very quick chat. I've just read it out about what that may be. So I suggested about is that the kind of Skynet idea of AI deciding to nuke the planet and NHI don't like it? Can you imagine that's the real battle, NHI saving us from AI? That would be cool.
This is something that's been talked about on Doomer Friday since the inception of the four of us talking, is this connection with NHI and AI clearly being some kind of, you know, point of convergence with all things, where like either AI will find a way to make their reality known to everybody, or that AI would be an actual threat to humanity. And if we are, let's say we are property of some kind of NHI being, I think they would have a reason to jump in to protect us from annihilation if we are some kind of resource or someone's pet or just something that someone cares about. I don't know.
I spoke to a guy at Sol over dinner. Sounds romantic. It's less actually, it was quite romantic, even though there was a whole room of us. and he
That's called an
works
orgy,
for a-
bud.
an orgy with clothes on. Thank you very much. And he works for a major AI company, and he said there was no way, shape, or form that he didn't see the AI thing going really badly really soon. He was like, "There's no way that this goes well for us." And I mean, he works like in AI. He is like, yeah.
God damn.
So he was like, nothing good of it.
Is this a name that we would know?
No, I can't
Okay.
remember the guy's name. That's why I'm not saying it.
Isn't
But-
it Jonathan Bertie? Is that not him?
No.
Okay.
He's not part of Sol. He was at the Sol Symposium. He was a guy who was from like a major company that deals in AI, and I was sat beside him. Really interesting dude. But he was like, he had nothing even speculatively positive to say that it could go well if this happened. He was like, no, this is going to kill us all.
So he thinks an extinction level, we should be worried about going extinct.
yeah,
That's not scary at all.
no,
It's not Friday, is it?
Does he
Turn it on
still
and off again.
when he said that to you, was he still working in artificial intelligence? Was he still doing that for a living?
yeah. From what I remember, again, I don't drink, so I wasn't like drunk or anything.
Whoa.
But yeah,
Here's another
Now,
question, guys.
Before we go on,
hold
just-
Yeah.
Go on.
If you guys in your job, let's say you were that guy and you really believe that, would you go public with that?
he had a family and kids and stuff, so like once he stopped crying and looking at pictures of his kids, he didn't cry. But like I get like he's got a job and it's still regardless speculative. So, you know, even if he did truly believe that was going to happen and that all the calculations look like this is the outcome, there's still the whole Doctor Strange to Iron Man, you know. It's the 1 in 135 million chance that it does come out a different way. You don't know until you know. You think of all the things that have come along that we've not destroyed ourselves yet. Atomic energy, nuclear weapons, ammunitions, the internet. You know, we've tried our best, but we seem to be, you know, Larry David falling upwards and just managing to get by to the next thing.
That's very true. Despite our best efforts, we're still here somehow.
Yep.
That is true.
Is
There's
that
always
because of
next
us or because of something else?
Now it makes me. I mean, we hear about NHI shutting down nuclear sites and whatever. I've always wondered, like, really, the last time anyone tried was in the 40s. No one's tried to launch a nuke since then. No one's really tried since then. I find that hard to believe. So I do feel like something has stopped it since then.
There's been plenty of nuclear tests, though. There's been thousands of nuclear
Tests.
tests.
In the
They've all
60s,
happened.
yeah.
Killed lots of marine life. And then when you look at even Fukushima, and no, I didn't swear or sneeze. If you look at Chernobyl,
Yeah,
Chernobyl, yeah.
they could have shut down that nuclear. That could have been handy. They could have shut down that nuclear plant for us. That would have been good. And people go, oh, there were sightings of, yeah, maybe there was something over the plants. Maybe it was birds. Maybe it was, I don't know. But they didn't stop that. And it looks like they could have. That would have been useful.
maybe they can't stop accidents, but they can stop intended attacks.
That would imply, what? I'm trying to think of the word. What would that imply that if, so are you saying they can or they won't or don't?
Would say what?
So like if Russia was about to launch a missile right now,
Yeah.
you're saying the NHI could go and stop that.
I think so. I
So
mean,
then that
they've
would
shown that they
imply
can.
Yeah, but Chernobyl didn't happen like that. Chernobyl was like over, I think, several minutes. Things went to shit. Because I remember it was about testing. I listened to Finn versus the internet and Finn versus history. If anyone wants a read on what my actual humor level is, that I could not say because it would get us shut down, go and check that out. But I listened to their Chernobyl series, and it was literally around how they were testing something that the guy didn't have to test or wasn't meant to test.
But something broke.
And essentially, yeah. But if he just left it, it wouldn't have happened. It was a kind of but it happened over time. It wasn't an instant issue. So
Mhm.
they could have came and stopped it and didn't. So then you're saying they would come and stop a missile launch, but they won't stop something like that, which actually affected people, probably a larger number of people over a longer period of time. Because
Yeah,
for
good
many
point.
years after that event,
Yep.
the podcast I listened to, they were talking about how in Wales, in the UK, there was radioactive soil because of like how high the land was across Europe. Certain levels of rain and radiation would fall depending on kind of mountainous terrain. So even in Wales in the UK, people and animal life and farm life and vegetation was affected from Chernobyl.
Mhm.
So yeah, you can hit someone with a weapon and kill tens of thousands or 100,000 people, and you damage one area really badly, but this damaged a huge continental-sized area
True.
for a long, long, long time.
Yep. No, you're right.
Maybe
You're right.
that's why the cattle mutilations happen, because they check things like how messed up are the livestock here? You know,
Mhm.
what's the radiation levels? What are these animals eating? How badly have they polluted the area? You know, we're feeding these cattle grass, but it's actually quite polluted. Let's see what because I think it was Gary Nolan I spoke to who once suggested that cattle mutilations would make sense in a way that we're checking the food chain of this species,
Right.
and the pollutants, what's in it, the makeup of the food. That would make sense.
Bro, we have 4,375 people watching right now.
Idiots.
Dude, give them all a shout out one by one, each name.
And on Twitter, we got the most. There are 2,000 for me, 1,100 for Andy on Twitter. So thank you
All
to
right,
everybody
okay.
on,
You've got
on,
double
on
Pavel.
Twitter.
That's fine.
I'm just like surprised. I've never gotten this before on X. So thank you to everyone who's watching. That's really nice.
Largely because of me, Pavel. That's fine.
Always.
I know
People
that
have left my
accent.
stream and joined yours out of sympathy. That's what I was.
Had Mexico won, we'd probably have more people viewing, but that's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Hey, too soon.
To all
Too
my
soon.
Norwegian fans out there, you know, there's always next
Sorry.
week.
Big soccer.
I am
guy
rooting
over here.
for Norway on that next one. So hopefully,
I've got some questions, but I think shall we keep them for the next one, Pavel?
yeah,
Because
that'd
we've
be
been
cool.
going over 2 hours now at this point.
Yeah, I agree. It's been really nice today, guys. Thank you for being here. And anything else you want to say to the people? Are you guys expecting something for Roswell anniversary or no?
I think Trump is going to make a speech confirming the existence of NHI. And if he doesn't, it's because something changed. Maybe he
Calm
was
down.
busy schmoozing Gianni Infantino, talking about United States football team's red cards.
The Scots king of UFOs you are now?
Oh, yeah. My crown for that one. Do you know what? Maybe. And I'm not just saying that. And again, can I just ask everyone who's listened and watched, thank you on all 3 streams. I know Dan's not streaming this, I don't think, but can you go
No,
and
I'm
make sure
not.
you like and comment on people's stuff? Because it really makes a difference. Leave reviews. It helps out idiots like us keep this kind of stuff going as well as it does. But yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if what Luna hinted at with the you know, these things are energy, and you know, Grush is 60 to 90 days, and Luna also mentioned that there's something coming down the line that proves this is real. I don't think we're getting evidence of aliens, but I just wonder, are we going to get some kind of statement of some point? I'll be a little bit annoyed if on the 8th of July we do get some kind of Trump statement, because again, just for me, it sounds like that dude's just taking the piss, to use a Scottish phrase. So yeah.
But he is the entertainment president, and he is the kind of guy that if he were to make an announcement, it would be on some kind of like goofy traditional holiday, you know, a date that would make sense. It's almost too easy to think he would do it on Roswell, which is probably why he probably would. I'm not saying he will, but yeah, this is the entertainment presidency.
Yeah. And I'll see you guys on the next Doomer Wednesday. It's going to be, which is also Sander Jones's birthday. So it's going to be
and
a
the
fun
Roswell
one.
anniversary.
And the Roswell anniversary. Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you to everybody in the chat. Thank you for the super chats. Thank you, Andy, for being here. Thank you, Dan, for joining us. And remember, stay curious and inquisitive like these two right here, Andy and Dan. See you later, guys. Bye.
Bye.